Welcome, everybody, to the Executive Education Unit's webinar of Leaders as Coaches. The University of Denver is really excited to bring this to you today. And I'm Aaron Templer. I'm Executive MBA alum, actually, from Daniels. And I'm excited to be here facilitating what is going to be a terrific conversation with David Morelli. David, we're lucky to have him, Senior Vice President of Strategy and Talent Development at PaySimple here in Denver. He's helped really spur it and its revenue to multiples of 10 in 4 years. He helped raise about $315 million from a world-renowned private equity firm. David's got over 20 years of professional and executive coaching experience as well, and he's trained over 200 coaches in a year-long certification program. And he's led worldwide online programs with over 100,000 participants. So in a couple of short words, David is the real deal, and we're excited to have him. He's also the creator and host of a personal and professional development podcast called Awaken Radio. So he's got a good nose and voice for this type of activity. Awaken has over a million subscribers, and it passed Oprah, if you can believe it or not, to hit #1 on iTunes in 2 different categories. And he is an adjunct faculty in the executive education department at Daniels as well. So you can tap into even more of his expertise if you want to join any of the leadership, I guess one leadership program that we'll talk about a little bit later that David teaches in as well. So I'm excited to have David here. I love these topics. I love his sort of approach to thinking about coaching as a leadership technique, really, in some ways. To learn how we can all be better coaches in our leadership positions. So David, thank you. I'll let you take it over and I'll just kind of jump in as you need me. And for the folks listening, one last kind of housekeeping item. We've got everybody muted. We'll certainly welcome your questions through the chat feature or through the Q&A feature. I'll keep an eye out for those. If I see that they're relevant along the way and we feel like we've got a good break, I might break in with 1 or 2 of them, but mostly we'll do the Q&A at the end. So feel free to submit your questions at any time, and we'll run through as many of those as we have time for. And now, without any further ado, David, feel free to take it over.
Thanks. Yeah. It's great to be here with all of you, and to be here as representing the Daniels College of Business Executive Education Department. And so today we're really going to dive into coaching, and here's kind of a silly graphic, right? But this is kind of how I think about coaching. You know, you sort of go in to some kind of session, whether it's a conversation and you're a manager and you're going to have coaching conversations with people, or you're using it as a leadership tool to lead departments and discussions and other things like that, or whether it's an actual session that's broken out as distinct from a person's work and workday, like we do at PaySimple. This is kind of what I look at. Is like, you go in, you don't have clarity, you're kind of like, I have this thing weighing on me, and then you go into this fluffy cloud, which we'll explore what's in that fluffy cloud, and you come out the other side and you have clarity and you have direction and all that stuff. And so whether it's you going into coaching dynamic to the coaching cloud, or you're facilitating the coaching cloud, and these are your direct reports or people that you work with. That's kind of how I think about it. So here's another view of organizations, right? So typically speaking, there's a bunch of people on the bottom layer, and maybe there's a ladder that goes up to the next level. Maybe there's a career pathing, perspective, but everybody at the next tier is always better off if their people are more capable, right? So the better you are at cultivating the talents of those around you, the more support you're going to have to continue to move up. Well, coaching is one of those things where it helps create ladders through each layer of the organization. And it doesn't just apply to the person or people at the top. It actually should be something that's developed throughout the organization as a tool. I'm going to share with you some of the techniques and some of the tools that I've used, like Aaron was talking about, to help PaySimple really make a pretty big quantum leap in their own growth and development, and the strategies that helped get us there. But really, the thing that I think matters more than that is, does this stuff work and how does it work? And I'll give you some real data behind, here's what I did, how I did it, and the results so that you can really see that this is an ROI tool as much as it is like a fluffy empowerment tool. I would say it's more of an ROI tool than fluff. So here are the quick benefits, in my mind. You're going to increase performance by using coaching. Coaching is really a clarity tool and an ability to help people think at higher and higher levels. And the higher they think, or the greater clarity they have, the better they're going to perform, especially if they're more engaged and motivated. So you do increase engagement along the way. I think you raise quality because you're bringing out the best in people and having that best in them meet their real world like activities, right? So you're raising the quality. You can use it for brainstorming and identifying opportunity. I can't tell you how many times that somebody comes in and says, I have this problem. And I go, great. Well, let's actually talk through the dynamics of the problem and then what you're thinking. And they're like, I'm not thinking anything. I don't have a solution for it. And by the end, they've come up with 3 or 4 solutions just through the power of questions, which we'll talk to you about and teach you how to ask those kind of powerful questions.
I hear that, and I think that's not a coaching benefit, that's a teamwork benefit.
That's interesting, right? Right. I think you can use it at levels. I think you're right? Like there's an individual level where, hey, the more I'm clear, the better I'm going to approach whatever problem or strategy or whatever I'm doing. But you can absolutely use everything that we're going to talk about in a teamwork environment, right? So you can say, great, let's sit down, let's get the whiteboard and then ask these questions, these thought-provoking questions that pull out real clear answers. But you can do that. You can use this stuff with team members, as teams, or even just with yourself.
Great.
So, really, I can't tell you how many organizations struggle over having a really capable leader that they do a lot and they're responsible for a lot, but those underneath them aren't developed enough to be able to take their place, right? So here's the double-edged sword in my mind. If you don't have people who could do your job, you can't move up or move on. You're indispensable. And that's actually, like I said, double-edged sword. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. If you're indispensable, nobody's going to move you because nobody can do what you do and can't lose you in that position to get some other exposure that you would want to have. I read an interesting statistic, it was probably about a year ago, that now CEOs have had at least 6 different roles within their organizations before going into the CEO role. So if you think about the more you grow and develop and are able to take on new things because the people around you are more capable, that's going to make you more promotable within whatever field that you're growing in. So developing those future leaders and having them bring more of the solutions to you than the problems, to have them be creative and engaged versus telling what to do, what should I do next, or just staying in their own swim lane and not really contributing into a greater capacity. So that tool, and then plus, I think it's a huge retention tool as well as a way of attracting talent. More so now than ever, people are asking on the way in, because we hear this all the time. I mean, our growth is, in the last 4 years, we've gone from 60 to 600 people. And invariably, people come in and they ask the question, what do you do to develop the people around you? Because high potentials want to be developed. They don't just want to sit there and click a button or punch a number or do whatever. They want to be invested in. And so what systems do you have in place to invest in them? Well, coaching can be one of those tools, whether it's that you supply it throughout the organization, as Pay Simple has done, or you embed it into your management culture to say, here's how we approach the development of our team. It's really important to us, and then to have techniques behind that.
Let me take this pause real quick. I know a lot of new people joined the webinar real quick, so just want to remind everyone you're on mute, but we will welcome your questions through the chat function or through the Q&A function, whichever is easiest for you. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll go back to the presentation.
All right, so I think Aaron did a phenomenal job saying, who is this guy, right? Because why are you going to listen? And for those of you that here's some of it. So I've been coaching for 20 years, right? And there's all different kinds of coaching, but the style that I'm going to allude to and teach you is really about where productivity crosses engagement, right? So it's all well and good to coach somebody and say, well, what are your values? And, like, what are your fears? And that's cool. That's actually how coaching was born, was sort of life coaching, if you will. But, and then there's the flip side, right? The flip side is I'm a mentor, an expert, and I'm just going to tell you what to do. That's not really coaching either. So just to get clear on the definition in my mind of this type of business coaching is really about you being curious and asking questions of whoever it is that you're interacting with. Let's say it's in a one-on-one with your direct report, and you're asking thought-provoking questions that has them come up with new ideas or new clarities or new plans in order to be more productive and engaged in what they're doing. So it really is a tool to drive people forward. And over the 20 years, I've sort of had to take what quote coaching is considered as life coaching and morph it into being really useful for businesses. So Aaron mentioned this. I have a radio show. I have a lot of great guests, CEOs and some great academics. Adam Grant from Wharton is coming on this week. He's a well-known author of Give and Take and Originals and some other stuff. He's actually starting a podcast, so we're going to share about that this week. So, and then joined Paceable. And then I'm also an executive MBA alumni, which is great.
Yeah.
Two peas in a pod right here. And then adjunct faculty. So that's my perspective. So here's what, at PaySimple, here's what coaching did we had it a little bit like an experiment. We said, cool, let's try this thing called coaching. Let's give it to everybody. And when we give it to everybody, let's try it for 90 days and see what happens. So we did a survey before and a survey afterwards. And here were the results. Job satisfaction going up 56%. People's sense of performing at their best up 74%. And then people's confidence in their work and workday going up 84%. And if you can equate job satisfaction, people performing at their best, and confidence in their work and workday to their actual productivity, you'll see, or you probably already know, yeah, the more engaged they are, the better it is that they're performing. And so here are some other things sort of behind the scenes as to what coaching approach I took. So the primary category, we tracked how many minutes I spent in 5-minute increments. So let's say we talked about solving a problem, a strategy of some kind, right? I would log that, and this giant Excel spreadsheet, right? I would log that, and then communication, internally facing communication, being the second topic. So literally for over 2 years, this isn't 2 years worth of data, but over 2 years, and actually more than that, this is reflective of what I've seen in organizations, and this is coaching from the very top to the very bottom. And with the distinction between team management, everything else was pretty much the same across whether you're a manager or whether you're an individual contributor. Team management obviously is higher for managers, so basically looking at the team dynamics. So you can see from this, and yes, there's a lot of stuff on here, but you can see that people solving problems is the #1 topic. People come in and want to have clarity about whatever it is they're working on, because the more clarity they have, the more they can go forward and actually create value for you. And so if you think about it, it's give me a plan. I'm stuck on this thing. Here's what's funny about the brain, Aaron. I find this fascinating, is anytime a person hits a stuck point, like they get cognitively stuck, they put the thought, project or whatever on the back burner, right? It's kind of like, oh, well, I don't know what to do, so I'll think on that.
Right.
And then that delays. And then sometimes that back burner gets forgotten about, or sometimes it's, my boss just asked me about that thing that I put in the back burner, and now it's 3 weeks later, or whatever. Yep. And then you have to go back in, and then you hit the next roadblock, and then you put it on the back burner. So this is really, in many ways, a back burner accelerator. It's to take everything that would have gotten put on the back burner and have a plan people can take action on, right? So it's shortening the time between question to clarity, in my mind. So That's number one. Yeah.
And that must be a tremendous value add to anyone